Okay, well, first of all, I think in order to get your head around the idea of putting together a TV show, I think it also applies for anything you're posting on social media, or any tribe that you're creating, or any community that you follow. Anybody who does sales will appreciate what it is that we're going to be talking about as well, because there's a diagram that I want to share with you. And this diagram has got three different circles, and you'll see it there. First one is your game. That's inner and outer game. The second one is audience expectations. And third one is the show. We're going to be dealing today with the audience and expectations. But just to explain this actual diagram before we move on, your game is your inner game, what you're thinking about you, what you're thinking about the world, the way that you connect with it, and what you're going to be doing in your show. The outer game is what comes from inside your brain and out of your mouth when you share it. The audience is what their expectations are of the world and what they want from you. And the show is the vehicle you put together and the objectives that you have that the show will get for you. So let's put this together. If you've got your game right, inner and outer, and if you know your audience, but you haven't got a show that's effective, it will be boring. If you've got your game together and you know a great show, but you haven't got an audience, then you'll get no views, as many people are not influential will know. And lastly, if you've got a great audience, have got expectations and a fantastic show, but you haven't got your own act together, it will be a boring thing that nobody will pay attention to. That's why all three elements are important to get that gold star and have a really effective show. So with that in mind, I want to spend some time looking at the actual elements of your audience, because in order to get a global brand, it's important to understand that you're talking about a global audience. Now, for many people, that's a huge challenge. What does the rest of the world look like? How can I interact with them? Well, one of the beautiful things for me and for Ernesto and for the people who enjoyed the show is we stopped thinking about local a long time ago. We thought about who would want to have our content. Now, if we were doing this in a local bar or a local restaurant, yeah, we'd get some people coming along for a meetup. But by doing it online, the numbers are bigger, and you can reach the people who really want to reach you as well. So why is it that many people don't consider or get the idea of working with other people around the world so wrong? Well, the very simple answer is a thing called the Mercator's Map. And we're going to share that with you right now. When you see the Mercator's Map, you'll understand that so many people had the wrong idea about the way the world has been shaped. We're going to show you a video actually to illustrate that. Watch this from one of my favorite shows of all time, The West Wing.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry to be late.
not a problem.
I'm CJ Craig.
Of course you are. I'm Dr. John Fallow. This is Dr. Cynthia Sales and Professor Donald Huke.
Hugh.
Huke.
Okay, and you are the Organization of Cartographers for Social Equality.
Well, we're from the OCSE. We have many members.
How many?
4,300 dues-paying members.
What are the dues?
$20 a year for the newsletter.
Let's start.
Wait, I want to see this.
This is Josh Lyman.
Indeed you are.
Josh, this is Dr. Fallow, and
Hi.
his merry men.
Yes.
Should we begin?
Yes. Plain and simple, we'd like President Bartlett to aggressively support legislation that would make it mandatory for every public school in America to teach geography using the Peters projection map instead of the traditional Mercator.
Give me $200 and it's done.
Really?
No. Why are we changing maps?
Because, CJ, the Mercator projection has fostered European imperialist attitudes for centuries and created an ethnic bias against the Third World.
Really?
The German cartographer, Mercator, originally designed this map in 1569 as a navigational tool for European sailors.
The map enlarges areas at the poles to create straight lines of constant bearing or geographic direction.
So it makes it easier to cross an ocean.
But
Yes.
it distorts the relative size of nations and continents.
Are you saying the map is wrong?
Oh dear, yes. Look at Greenland.
Okay.
Now look at Africa.
Okay.
The two land masses appear to be roughly the same size.
Yes.
Would it blow your mind if I told you that Africa is in reality 14 times larger?
Yes?
Here we have Europe, drawn considerably larger than South America. When it's 6.9 million square miles, South America is almost double the size of Europe's 3.8 million.
Alaska appears 3 times as large as Mexico, when Mexico is larger by 0.1 million square miles.
Germany appears in the middle of the map when it's in the northernmost quarter of the Earth.
Wait. Relative size is one thing, but you're telling me that Germany isn't where we think it is?
Nothing's where you think it is.
Where is it?
I'm glad you asked. The Peters projection.
It has fidelity of axis.
Fidelity of position.
East-west lines are parallel and intersect north-south axes at right angles.
What the hell is that?
It's where you've been living this whole time. Should we continue?
Uh-huh.
So, you're probably wondering what all of this has to do with social equality.
No, I'm wondering where France really is.
Guys, we want to thank you very much for coming in.
Hang on, we're gonna finish this.
Okay.
What do maps have to do with social equality, you ask?
She asked.
Salvatore Natoli of the National Council for Social Studies argues, in our society, we unconsciously equate size with importance and even power.
I'm going to check in on Tubman.
Go.
These guys find Brigadoon on that map, you'll call me, right?
Probably not.
Okay.
When third world countries are misrepresented, they're likely to be valued less. When Mercator maps exaggerate the importance of Western civilization, when the top of the map is given to the Northern Hemisphere and the bottom is given to the Southern, then people will tend to adopt top and bottom attitudes.
But wait, where else could you put the Northern Hemisphere but on the top?
On the bottom.
How?
Like this.
Yeah, but you can't do that.
Why not?
Because it's freaking me out.
Very interesting. So let's put this in some kind of perspective. We want to get you to understand the view of the world. That map that we're talking about there, the Mercator's map or the Mercator's map, is something that was used in American schools for 500 years up until 2017. Then we realized it was completely distorted and the equator was at the wrong place and all the African countries and dark countries were given to be tiny and all the rest were given to be a big sense of importance. And Greenland was about the same size as Africa. Now, let's put this into a look perspective without going too close to the bone. Do you remember when Donald Trump tried to buy Greenland? Do you think that maybe that perspective of what a great landmass it could be might have been slightly wrong? So let's put this into a different view. It's a misconception that is at the heart of many people's ideas about doing business around the world. You've got a whole load of people completely different to you who've got a load of money in big countries that maybe have even more of a population or access to buy your stuff than the people in your surroundings, and you may well be ignoring them. So we want to talk now about engaging your audience. Now you understand that they could be everywhere and your perception of who's useful for you is slightly different. We want to introduce to you somebody called Jane Elliott. Now, Jane Elliott is a fascinating character. She's in her 80s, maybe her 90s now, and what she did was after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and she's a white school teacher, or she was a white school teacher, she did an experiment with the children in her class in a very small town. What she said was, tomorrow, well, when they came in, she said, right, everybody, it's been a bit of discovery by science that if you've got melanin in your eyes, the more you have, the more intelligent that you are. The more you've got in your eyes, the darker they are. So all the brown-eyed kids, you're smarter, you can get longer breaks, you can eat your lunch as long as you want, you can drink out of a drinks fountain, and you can do what you want in the class. But all the blue-eyed kids, because you're not as smart, you get shorter breaks, you can only eat at certain times, and you have to get a paper cup if you want to take the water out of the fountain, because that privilege is only for the brown-eyed kids. So she ran this for half a day, and the fights broke out, and even the kids turned around to her, and she had blue eyes, and said, Miss, that's why you're not the headmistress of this school, because you're not as smart, because you've got blue eyes. Later on in the day, she stopped that, and she let it go. The next Monday, when the kids came in, she said, there's been a breakthrough. It's not the ones with the dark eyes. It's the ones with the blue eyes that are the smartest. So she swapped the whole thing around. But the big difference was the blue-eyed kids, because they'd experienced what it's like to be hurt, were no longer nasty to the brown-eyed kids because they got it. Now, I won't go too far into this story. She's fascinating. All I will say is that when she went on TV and shared this across the world, when she came back, her kids got beaten up. And she was told by her school teachers and by half the town, how dare you make the kids feel inferior. Now, you're going to get a chance to see her in action, and you realize what an incredible firecracker Jane Elliott is with this next clip.
I watched my students become what I told them they were. I watched little wonderful brown-eyed white people become vicious, ugly, nasty, discriminating, domineering people in the space of 15 minutes. I watch brilliant little blue-eyed white Christian children become timid and frightened and angry and unable to learn in the space of 15 minutes. If you do that with a whole group of people for a lifetime, you change them psychologically. You convince those who are analogous to the brown-eyed people that they are superior, that they are perfect, that they have the right to rule.
Did you learn anything this morning?
I think I learned from the experience of feeling like I was in a glass cage and I was powerless. I realized this morning that there were very few times in my life that I've ever been discriminated against, very few.
And you convince those who take the place of the blue-eyed students that they are less than.
How did they feel yesterday? Down like a dog on a leash.
If you do that for a lifetime, what do you suppose that does to them? You find out that there are people of color who refuse to live down to our expectations of them. I am now watching, at the national level, that exercise that I did based on eye color being reenacted in the government of the United States of America. I've done this with people of all ages for the last 50 years. Now think about that. Next year it will be the 50th anniversary of the killing of Martin Luther King Jr. and the beginning of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. When are we going to learn? When are we going to put a stop to this?
White people's number one freedom in the United States of America is the freedom to be totally ignorant about those who are other than white.
We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. White people are the free, and people of color have to be brave. I want this situation to change. I want it to be such that no black person has to have courage to get up in the morning, any more than I, as a white person, have to have courage to get up in the morning. This is the most important book you or I or anybody else will ever read. I'm an educator. Every educator should refuse to perpetuate the myth of white superiority. There's only one race. It's the human race.
I have been practicing cultural understanding, and basically trying to put myself in somebody else's shoes every single time. And sometimes it's very difficult, and it is true. I mean, I would never be able to see the world the way that you see it. But I am incredibly empathic, and I believe very strongly that that this really can make a big difference the moment that you experience it in your own life. And this is why traveling, and this is why seeing the world in the eyes from someone else will be incredibly powerful. And this is what I think we do very well, because of course, you know, I mean, we are always trying to empathize with others, trying to understand and trying to see the world in the other person's view. And for me, I see you aching every time that I see the story of what's going on right now in the world. And even though I cannot feel it in the same way as you feel it, it also pains me because I know that you're in pain. And this is one of those things which is incredibly important with being global, because you need to really try to, as much as you can, try to understand what the circumstances are for every single person.
Thank you. And you're right. I mean, for anybody of color, and I'm not just saying of color, but anybody who's in that kind of position, it's not just aching when it comes up, you're aching every day, but it's reminding you when you see the things in the news. But to put it back into business perspective, your ability to do really powerful icebreakers and activities with your audience, and especially if you make them inclusive, with diversity being the reason why you bring people together, you end up being able to make more profit, get faster decisions made, have a smarter team, and create greater loyalty amongst your audience when you exercise that. So also, we're going to have a look in a moment at another activity. It's on the same angle, because I think it's very important that we open up your mind to be able to think about a global audience. If every single person who we're talking about was to give you $1, regardless of what color, what creed, what age, what sex, whatever they are, what religion, doesn't matter, then you've got access to every dollar on the planet. If you narrow it right down, then you lose a ton of people. So let's have a think about where your economics work. Because in many cases, it's hard to work out where the money is. And in many cases, you need to work out what the drivers are behind people to take them to where they need to be. And I think the exercise that's in the next video will blow you away if you haven't seen it. And you'll see it with a different set of eyes if you saw it a couple of years ago. Have a look at this.
Hey, line up. Line up. Everybody line up. We're about to race. Everybody line up. Shoulder to shoulder. Take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up. We're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. It's a $100 bill. Before I say go, I'm going to make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to help mom or dad with the bills. Take 2 steps forward if it wasn't because of your athletic ability, you don't have to pay for college. Take 2 steps forward if you never wondered where your next meal was going to come from. I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, on your mark, get set, go! If you didn't learn anything from this activity, you're a fool.
So there you go. Really powerful video. And we're talking about the marketing. We're talking about creating a relationship with the market and knowing your audience. What we're talking about as well about creating change is why would the kids at the front who have the privilege actually do anything about giving an opportunity for the people behind them to get that $100 when they know it's in front of them, it's their right at the front to get it. That's why when we talk about Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, so many people are reluctant to accept it. Yeah. Now, this is part of the overall picture. There's one more video we're going to go to in a moment. And with that video, I want this, the thing is, we've looked at why the world is different. We've looked at the money that's available. We've looked at the ways of engaging people, and we've looked at the dynamics and economics of every society. And what you see in that group from America is different in every other country. It can be reversed depending on the country and the caste system, and it happens everywhere. But the one thing I want to think about is that right now, everyone's still obsessed, and I see speakers do it all the time, politicians all the time, thinking it's all about you. If you really want to make an impact, you really want to be financially successful, emotionally successful, and get something out of your life, you've got to change it around and realize it's not about you, it's about them. In order to understand them, everything we've shown you so far isn't enough. We want to go even deeper inside an average audience and share with you the dynamics and an understanding of what's going on. Before we show you this video, let me just quickly say, we'd love to have your comments. We'll be reviewing your comments and chatting to Tizia in a moment as well to see what her thoughts are. But before that, just watch this video about the idea of being put into a box.
It's so easy to place people in boxes, drawing lines, creating sides. There's us, and there's them. Those we feel comfortable around, and those we don't. There are those of us with many chapters, and those just starting their own stories. There's the well-to-do, and those doing what they can. There are those we share something with, and those we don't seem to share anything with.
Welcome, and thank you for coming today, guys. Today I'm going to be conducting an experiment where I'll ask you a series of questions. Now, these questions will be very personal questions, and for us to get a true result, I need you to be completely honest with how you respond. The first question I have is, who in here was the class clown? Who is never on time?
And then there's us. We who have tattoos. We who feel lonely. We who have been bullied. We who have bullied others. We who are madly in love. We who have overcome great adversity. And there's the lucky ones, whose team won the championship this year. We who beat cancer. there's all of us who are created in the image of God. And as one body, we stand together, united as one under His grace.
Ask for your comments. Have a think about how much money is being left on the table when you look at the adverts in magazines, billboards, TV. How many of them actually have black or colored families or individuals on them? Because people don't know how to market to them or they don't care. If you're going to speak and be effective, think how many people you can reach when you stop thinking about people being like you and start looking at the people who are there's so many more who aren't like you, who would love to have somebody help them and take them on a journey that makes their lives improve.
In Rome, do what the Romans do. If wherever I went, and as you know, I'm a very well-traveled man, and wherever I go, I always want to learn the different cultures, how people think, what is what they think, what is what they feel, what is what they want. And not just coming from my perspective, because my perspective is always the least important for them. Now, the big thing that you need to always understand as a global speaker is how can my perspective be beneficial for either one of the people that you're talking to? How can you make them connect with you, and your experience, your perspective could be also given for them? So that, I think, Dave, you really hit the nail on the head, because this is absolutely critical for every speaker. And I think for me, the big takeaway, and that also should be for you, is never call yourself an international speaker just because you have spoken. For example, I mean, if you are in Germany and you spoke in the Netherlands, or if you are in the States and you spoke in Canada, that does not make you an international speaker. If you want to call yourself an international speaker, you need to be somebody that has really taken a trip overseas and spoken and understood the culture. But right now, as we cannot travel, you have to think yourself global, and you need to start thinking, well, you know, whatever is happening in America might be completely irrelevant to someone else, and start thinking how they think, start interacting, start getting, for example, right now, I got an invitation that you, Dave, shared from a guy, I think his name is Faisal. I think he's based in Dubai. I do not know where he's from, but I want to be sure that I connect with those audiences. I want to be sure that I connect with audiences which are completely different to me, so that I can get into that catharsis, I can get into that change and start seeing the world from someone else's view. Right now, what's going on with the Black Lives Matters makes me really sad, because, of course, until somebody like Dave tells you, well, you know, I've been suffering from this my entire life, we don't get to know that. And this is exactly the whole thing of the blue eye and brown eye experiment. It's until you don't feel it on your own skin that you don't get to see it. However, you can, if you see the pain, and I see the pain in many of my Black friends, I see the pain in Dave, which is one of my closest friends, it makes me really sad, because now I see things on his way of thinking. And that's exactly the point that you need to understand about making sure that you understand the world with someone else's point of view and not only your point of view.
Absolutely. It makes economic sense. Forget everything else if you need to. It makes economic sense to be interested in other people, because then you can react, interact, and do business with them. If you have to take it at that level, take it at that level. The more you interact, the more you understand that the global planet has gone through the lockdown to be accessible by you. When you just change the filters you have over the way you see the world, then you can play a completely different game. Previously, it was all about locality. If you're a speaker, then you might get the chance to travel quite a lot or do international, but most of the time, it's your hometown that you're probably looking at doing business with. Online, you've gone from how many people in your hometown, if you're lucky, maybe 1 million people, to best part of 7 billion people accessible who can buy your stuff, watch your videos, do business with you, share your word, and make the world a better place. You have a responsibility as a speaker to start changing the world for the better. And if you don't do it in your 100 years on the planet, you've wasted them.